The Syrian Democratic Forces are pushing back against Turkey.
This barbaric attack is a flagrant aggression against all components of Syria and is clear support to the Islamic State terrorist organization.
On Saturday, Turkish troops and Free Syrian Army fighters launched an operation against the Kurdish YPG militia, the biggest part of the SDF alliance. The aim? To crush the YPG in the northern Syrian town of Afrin. A series of airstrikes cleared the way for ground troops to cross the border on Sunday, resulting in more than a dozen civilian casualties, according to rights groups. YPG fighters responded by firing several rockets into Turkey, which landed in the border province of Hatay. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said his forces would not back down and that the campaign was backed by Moscow.
Afrin will be settled. There won't be a step back from Afrin. We discussed this with our Russian friends. We have an agreement.
The Russian Foreign Ministry voiced concern and urged Turkey to show restraint, pulling its own troops from the region. Meanwhile, the U.S. position is increasingly ambiguous. Washington is one of the main backers of the Syrian Democratic Forces and the YPG, who are being directly targeted by Ankara. But U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis said Washington was given advance notice from Turkey before Saturday's airstrikes. He called Turkey a trusted NATO ally, with, quote, legitimate security concerns. Turkey says the YPG militia is part of the PKK, a pro-independence Kurdish movement which it considers a terrorist organization.
Turkey has invaded Syria with the goal of beating back U.S. allied Kurdish militias. RT correspondent Anya Paranpil is with us tonight for the breakdown of this. It seems like President Erdogan is pretty determined on this.
Absolutely, Ed. The latest front to open in this conflict highlights just how many foreign actors are involved in what some have referred to as a Syrian civil war. At least 9 people, including 6 civilians, were killed as a result of Turkish airstrikes conducted on Saturday. According to Turkey's prime minister, the assault dubbed Operation Olive Branch consists of Turkish troops, warplanes, artillery, and tanks offering support to Syrian rebels for hire known as the Free Syrian Army. The FSA was previously backed by the United States with the goal of ousting the Assad government, but now find themselves employed by Turkey to fight another U.S.-backed militia, the Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF. Turkish forces reportedly captured several villages in the Syrian region of Afrin over the weekend. Their goal is to oust Kurdish forces known as the YPG, or People's Protection Units, because it's seen as an extension of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, which Turkey considers to be a terrorist organization. While President Donald Trump ended U.S. support for so-called moderate rebels early on in his presidency, including the Free Syrian Army, he continues U.S. support for the Kurds. That's despite November reports, according to Turkey's foreign minister, that Trump promised Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan he was ending that policy. Russia's foreign ministry blamed Trump's support for the Kurds for the current situation, saying, quote, uncontrolled deliveries of modern weapons, including reportedly the deliveries of the man-portable air defense systems by the Pentagon to pro-U.S. forces in northern Syria, have contributed to the rapid escalation of tensions in the region and resulted in the launch of a special operation by the Turkish troops. Speaking Monday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov charged the United States with inflaming separatist aspirations among Syria's Kurds, stating Washington has actively encouraged and continues to encourage separatist sentiments among Kurds, which he said, quote, is either a lack of understanding of the situation or an absolutely conscious provocation. He also accused Washington of discouraging the Kurds from engaging in dialogue with the Syrian government. Turkey's actions come just several days after Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said the U.S. will maintain an open-ended presence in Syria. His comments followed an announcement from the Pentagon that it was creating a 30,000-strong militia described as a border force in Syria. Tillerson later scrambled to walk back that announcement, saying the policy had been, quote, misportrayed after Erdogan promised to strangle such a border force, quote, before it's even born.
The U.S. is in the process of creating a terror army on our border. What we have to do is nip this terror army in the bud. America, do not encroach on our borders. Do not provoke us, or we will run out of patience.
It appears now Tillerson's remarks were not enough to keep Ankara from going to war. Back to you, Ed.
Thanks, Anya.